Hi, everyone. Before we get into this audiobook, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit the subscribe button and drop a like. It helps me out a lot as well as contributes a lot to the channel. Now let's get into the story. I hope you enjoy. The wind whipped through her tattered clothes, a cruel caress against her bruised skin. Each step was a battle against the searing pain in her leg, a grim reminder of the war she had barely escaped. The scent of pine and damp earth filled her nostrils, a stark contrast to the metallic tang of blood that still clung to her senses. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat of terror and exhaustion. She was a ghost, a survivor haunted by the echoes of a massacre, and every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, sent a jolt of adrenaline through her already frayed nerves. A low growl rumbled through the silence, raising the hairs on her arms. Not a bear, not a deer. This was something far more sinister, a sound that brought back vivid, horrifying memories of teeth and claws. Rogues. Her breath hitched. She'd been running for days, fueled by a primal need to survive, to escape the clutches of the pack that had hunted her. The pack whose alpha's mate she had inadvertently, desperately, killed. She stumbled, her injured leg giving way, sending a fresh wave of agony through her. The world tilted, a dizzying kaleidoscope of green and brown. Panic, cold and sharp, pierced through the fog of exhaustion. She pushed herself up, gritting her teeth, her vision blurring at the edges. There were too many of them, their forms shadowy blurs in the deepening twilight. Their hunger, a palpable aura of malice, pressed in on her from all sides. Just as a massive hulking figure lunged, its eyes gleaming with feral intent, a blur of silver fur launched itself from the trees. A growl, deeper and more resonant than the rogue's, ripped through the air, vibrating through her very bones. The impact was brutal, a sickening crunch of bone and sinew. The rogue shrieked, a sound abruptly cut short as the silver wolf's jaws clamped down. He was magnificent. His fur, shimmering in the fading light, seemed to absorb the gloom, radiating an ethereal glow. His movements were fluid, powerful, each strike precise and devastating. He moved like a storm, a whirlwind of muscle and instinct, tearing through the rogues with a furious grace that left her breathless. She watched, mesmerized, as he dispatched them one by one, a primal dance of death and dominance. The last rogue fell, a whimpering heap at his paws. The silver wolf stood over it for a moment, his chest heaving, his powerful frame radiating a silent warning. Then, slowly, he began to shift. Bones realigned with soft pops, fur receded, and in its place, a man emerged. He was tall, his broad shoulders straining the fabric of his torn shirt. Dark hair, still damp from the shift, framed a strong, chiseled face. But it was his eyes that truly captivated her. A piercing, intelligent blue, now filled with a simmering intensity as they landed on her. There was no judgment in them, only a deep, unsettling concern. He took a step towards her, and she flinched, instinctively scrambling backward. Old habits died hard. Trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. "It's all right," he rumbled, his voice a low thrum that sent a shiver down her spine. It was a voice of authority, of calm strength, yet it held a surprising gentleness. "You're safe now." Safe? The word felt alien on her tongue. She hadn't been safe in what felt like an eternity. She stared at him, her heart still pounding, a strange mix of relief and fear warring within her. He was an alpha, she could sense it. The raw power that radiated from him was unmistakable. And she, a lone wolf, an outcast, a killer. He knelt, his gaze sweeping over her, lingering on her injured leg. "You're hurt," he stated, his brow furrowing. "Let me help you." She hesitated, her instincts screaming at her to flee. But her body screamed louder, demanding respite, demanding an end to the ceaseless pain. She was at her limit. The exhaustion was a heavy cloak, pulling her down, threatening to swallow her whole. Slowly, reluctantly, she nodded. He approached with a measured grace, his eyes never leaving hers, as if seeking permission with every step. When he reached her, he carefully extended a hand, his touch surprisingly warm as he gently examined her leg. A soft gasp escaped her lips as his fingers brushed against the swollen flesh. "It's a bad sprain, possibly fractured," he murmured, his voice laced with concern. "You need to get somewhere safe, where it can heal properly." He looked up, his gaze meeting hers, a silent question in their depths. "My pack is nearby. We can help you." His pack. The words were a fresh wave of dread. Packs meant rules, meant scrutiny, meant discovery. She was a phantom, meant to disappear, to leave no trace. But the thought of another night alone in the wilderness, crippled and vulnerable, sent a cold dread through her. The survival instinct, honed by months of constant threat, pushed her towards the warmth, the safety he offered, however temporary. I don't have anywhere else to go," she whispered, the confession raw and painful. Her voice, hoarse from disuse, sounded alien even to her own ears. A small, almost imperceptible smile touched his lips, a flicker of warmth in his intense eyes. "Then come with me," he said, his voice softer now. "My name is Theo. What's yours?" She hesitated, the weight of her secret pressing down on her. To give him her name was to give him a piece of herself, a step towards a connection she couldn't afford. But to refuse would be rude, suspicious. She needed his help. "Rune," she finally said, the name feeling foreign, a lie in itself. Her real name, the one she had carried before the war, before the bloodshed, felt like a distant memory. "Rune," he repeated, the sound rolling off his tongue, warm and comforting. "Welcome, Rune." He scooped her up effortlessly, cradling her against his strong chest. The warmth of his body, the steady beat of his heart, was an unexpected comfort, a stark contrast to the cold isolation she had endured. A strange, unfamiliar sensation bloomed in her chest, a faint hum that resonated deep within her. It was subtle, almost imperceptible amidst the pain and fear, but it was there, a quiet song beneath the chaos. He carried her through the darkening forest, his strides long and even, her weight seemingly negligible to him. The scent of him, pine and something else, something uniquely his, filled her senses, wrapping around her like a warm blanket. She found herself leaning into him, her head resting against his shoulder, her eyes fluttering closed. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, she felt a flicker of something akin to peace. The journey was a blur of muted sounds and gentle swaying. She drifted in and out of consciousness, vaguely aware of the shift in the air, the subtle scent of other wolves, the distant murmur of voices. When she finally opened her eyes fully, she found herself in a large, comfortable room, bathed in the soft glow of a nearby fireplace. A woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile was tending to her leg, her touch light and practiced. Theo stood nearby, his gaze fixed on her, a silent sentinel. The strange hum in her chest intensified, a growing warmth that spread through her veins, a comforting melody that seemed to be echoing from him. "You're safe here, dear," the woman said, her voice soothing. "My name is Ilara. You're in Alpha Theo's home. Your leg will mend, given time and rest." Rune nodded, her throat tight. Ilara, she thought. A healer, perhaps. The scent of herbs filled the air, mingling with the faint, comforting aroma of baked bread. This was a sanctuary, a haven she had never dared to dream of. Days bled into weeks. Her leg slowly mended, the pain receding, replaced by a dull ache that reminded her of her vulnerability. Theo was a constant presence. He brought her food, sat with her, his quiet strength a balm to her frayed nerves. He spoke little, but his presence alone was a comfort. He never pressed her for details, never asked about her past, respecting the silent wall she had built around herself. Yet, despite her efforts to remain detached, the bond grew. It was a subtle pull at first, a faint whisper in the back of her mind. Then it grew stronger, a tangible thread connecting their souls, a vibrant hum that resonated with every beat of her heart. The bond. Her blood ran cold. It was impossible. A mate bond. With him. She watched him from afar, saw the way his pack respected him, the easy camaraderie he shared with his betas, the quiet authority he wielded. He was everything a true alpha should be: strong, just, compassionate. And she was everything he could never want. The knowledge was a constant knot in her stomach, a lead weight in her chest. She saw his eyes, saw the growing tenderness in them, the warmth that intensified with each passing day. He was falling for her, or rather, the bond was forging a connection, drawing them together with an unstoppable force. He didn't know. He couldn't know. One evening, as the moon cast long, silver shadows across the room, he sat beside her bed, his gaze fixed on the dancing flames in the fireplace. The silence stretched between them, comfortable yet charged with unspoken emotion. "You're still guarded, Rune," he said, his voice soft, a hint of sadness in its depths. "I don't understand why. Are you afraid of me?" She looked at him, truly looked at him, and the guilt gnawed at her. He had saved her, protected her, offered her refuge. And she was a living lie. "No," she whispered, the word barely audible. "Not of you." He turned, his blue eyes searching hers, a frown creasing his brow. "Then what? What keeps you so far away?" The words clawed at her throat, desperate to be released, yet trapped by fear. How could she tell him? How could she shatter the fragile peace they had built? How could she destroy the growing warmth that threatened to consume them both? "My past," she finally admitted, her voice hoarse, laden with unshed tears. "It's complicated." He reached out, his large hand gently covering hers. The contact sent a jolt through her, a wave of warmth that spread through her arm, blossoming in her chest. The bond, strong and undeniable, resonated between them. A silent symphony. "Everyone has a past, Rune," he said, his thumb stroking the back of her hand. A simple gesture that held immense comfort. "Whatever it is, it doesn't change who you are now, or how I feel." His words were a dagger to her heart. How he felt. The truth, a bitter taste in her mouth, threatened to choke her. She was his mate. The very thought was a cruel joke, a cosmic twist of fate designed to punish them both. He, the honorable alpha, destined to be mated to the killer of his beloved. "You don't know who I am, Theo," she said, her voice choked with emotion. Tears pricked at her eyes, blurring his strong features. "You don't know what I've done." His grip tightened on her hand, a silent reassurance. "Then tell me," he urged, his voice firm but gentle. "Tell me everything. I will listen, and I will understand." The words were an offering, a challenge. Could she? Could she baden him with the truth? Could she shatter the image he had of her, the wounded survivor he had rescued? The thought of his face when he learned the truth, the pain, the betrayal, was almost unbearable. But the bond, that insidious, beautiful thing, demanded honesty. It demanded that they be whole, together, or broken apart entirely. She took a deep, shuddering breath, her mind racing. There was no easy way to say it, no gentle way to break the news that she had destroyed his world. "There was a war," she began, her voice barely a whisper, the memories flooding back, cold and sharp. "My Paquet, we were cornered, surrounded. We fought, but we were outnumbered. They were ruthless. They killed everyone." Her voice faltered, choked by the images that flashed behind her eyes, the scent of blood, the screams, the desperate struggle. "I was running," she continued, forcing the words out, each one a fresh wound. "I was cornered, just like my pack. I saw her. She was beautiful, but she was part of them. She was attacking me. I had no choice, Theo. It was her or me." Her gaze finally met his, wide and pleading, tears streaming down her face. "I killed her. I killed her to survive. And she was your mate, wasn't she?" The silence that followed was deafening, a vast echoing void. The warmth of his hand on hers slowly receded, his fingers growing stiff, then cold. His eyes, once so warm and compassionate, hardened, turning to chips of ice. The light in them dimmed, replaced by a cold, searing fire. The hum of the bond, once a gentle melody, vibrated with a discordant tremor, a screech of tearing fabric. He pulled his hand away as if burned, his face a mask of shock, then disbelief, then raw, unadulterated pain. His jaw tightened, a muscle jumping furiously in his cheek. His breath came in shallow, ragged gasps. What did you say?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper, laced with a dangerous tremor. He couldn't have heard her right. It was a nightmare. A cruel, twisted delusion. She repeated it, the words heavy with despair, condemning them both. "I killed your mate, Theo, during the war. I didn't know who she was. I swear it. I was just trying to survive." His eyes, once filled with a burgeoning tenderness, now held a chilling vacancy, a deep abyss of horror and betrayal. He stood slowly, his movements stiff, as if every muscle in his body was screaming in protest. The air around them crackled with tension, thick with the scent of his pain, his rage, his utter devastation. "Get out," he said, his voice flat, devoid of emotion, yet infinitely more terrifying than any scream. "Get out of my house. Get out of my sight." Her heart shattered, the sound echoing in the desolate chamber of her soul. She knew this was coming. She had anticipated it, dreaded it, yet the reality was infinitely worse. "Theo, please," she pleaded, scrambling to sit up, reaching out to him, desperate to touch him, to somehow bridge the chasm that had opened between them. "It wasn't like that. I had no choice." He recoiled, as if her touch would poison him. His face was a contorted mask of agony, his eyes burning with a cold fury. "No choice," he snarled, the word a venomous hiss. "No choice? You killed my mate, the woman I loved, the woman I was supposed to spend my life with." His voice rose, raw and guttural, filled with an anguish that tore at her very being. "And you expect me to believe you had no choice?" His hands clenched into fists at his sides, his knuckles white. She could feel the tremors of his suppressed rage, the sheer force of his inner turmoil. The bond, now a searing pain in her chest, pulsed with his fury, threatening to tear her apart. "I didn't know it was her," she cried, tears streaming down her face, blurring his enraged visage. "I swear I didn't know. They were all attacking. It was chaos." "I was desperate." "Desperate?" he scoffed, a bitter, humorless laugh escaping his lips. "My mate is dead because of your desperation? Get out, Rune, before I do something I regret." The unspoken threat hung heavy in the air, a chilling premonition. She knew he was capable of anything in his pain. The alpha within him, once her protector, was now her judge, her executioner. Slowly, painfully, she swung her legs over the side of the bed. Her mended leg still ached, a physical manifestation of the fresh wound in her soul. She stood, swaying slightly, her vision blurred by tears. She didn't look at him again, couldn't bear to see the hatred reflected in his eyes. She turned and hobbled towards the door, each step an agony, leaving behind the warmth, the safety, the fragile hope she had dared to nurture. As she reached the threshold, his voice, broken and filled with a despair that mirrored her own, stopped her. "The bondage there, isn't it?" he whispered, the question a ragged gasp. She froze, her hand on the cold doorknob. The bond, the undeniable truth that bound them, even in their brokenness. It was a cruel twist, a mockery of fate. She nodded, unable to speak, her throat choked with tears. A low growl rumbled in his chest, a sound of profound anguish. "Go," he commanded, his voice raw. "Before I decide that bond means nothing." She fled, not daring to look back. The night air was a shock to her senses, cold and unforgiving. The scent of pine and damp earth, once comforting, now felt suffocating. She stumbled through the darkness, her heart a raw bleeding wound. The bond, once a source of quiet joy, now burned with a searing pain, a constant reminder of the man she had destroyed, and the love she had lost before it even had a chance to bloom. She ran until her lungs burned, and her mended leg screamed in protest. She didn't know where she was going, only that she had to put as much distance as possible between herself and Theo, between herself and the agony of their shared truth. The forest, once a place of refuge, now seemed to mirror the turmoil within her. Each rustle of leaves was a whisper of judgment, each shadow a lurking fear. She found a small hidden cave, barely more than an overhang, and collapsed inside, shivering uncontrollably. The cold seeped into her bones, but it was nothing compared to the icy despair that had settled in her heart. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to ward off the chill, but it was futile. The image of Theo's face, contorted with pain and betrayal, was seared into her mind. His voice, broken and full of anguish, echoed in her ears. The bond, that damned, beautiful bond, pulsed with his pain. She felt it, a constant, sickening throb, a mirroring of his broken heart within her own. It was a cruel irony. The very thing that should have brought them together was now tearing them apart. He couldn't live without her, the bond demanded it. But he couldn't live with her, not when she was the killer of his beloved. Days turned into a blur of numb existence. She hunted small game, sparingly, just enough to survive. She avoided any signs of civilization, any scent of other wolves. She was a ghost again, a shadow lurking in the fringes, haunted by her past and the catastrophic present. One evening, as the moon hung heavy and full in the sky, she felt it, a tremor in the bond, a shift from pain to something darker, more dangerous. Fear, his fear. And beneath it, a desperate plea. Her head snapped up. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. The bond was screaming. Not with his anger, not with his heartbreak, but with an urgent, primal terror. It was a siren call, pulling her, demanding her presence. Her body, though still weary, responded instinctively. She shifted, her bones popping and cracking as fur sprouted, claws extended, and her senses sharpened. The wolf within her, once cowering, now surged with a desperate strength, propelled by an undeniable urge to protect. She didn't think, didn't hesitate. She ran. The scent of blood hit her first, a metallic tang that mingled with the familiar scent of Theo's pack. And then, the rogues. Many of them. Too many. Her heart seized with a fresh wave of dread. She burst into the clearing, a silent, silver blur. Chaos reigned. Wolves of Theo's pack were fighting fiercely, but they were being overwhelmed. And in the center of it all, Theo. He was a whirlwind of power, but even he was faltering, bleeding from multiple wounds, his eyes narrowed with exhaustion. A monstrous rogue, larger and more vicious than the others, lunged at him, its jaws snapping. Without a thought, she launched herself forward, intercepting the attack. Her body slammed into the rogue, sending them both tumbling. She snarled, her teeth bared, her ancient instincts taking over. This was not about forgiveness, not about acceptance. This was about survival. His survival. The bond demanded it. She fought with a ferocity she hadn't known she possessed, a primal rage fueled by fear for him, for the broken bond that still tethered them. She tore, she bit, she lunged, a silver streak amidst the chaos, her focus solely on protecting Theo. She didn't care about herself. She didn't care about the wounds she sustained, the sharp claws that raked across her flank, the teeth that grazed her ear. All that mattered was that he lived. Theo, seeing her, felt a jolt of something he couldn't name. Shock. Disbelief? Relief? The wolf that had killed his mate, the woman who had shattered his world, was now fighting by his side, defending him with a savage intensity that took his breath away. The bond, which had been a source of agonizing pain, now hummed with a desperate urgency, a shared purpose that transcended their brokenness. Together, they were a force. Their movements, once independent, began to flow together. A silent, deadly ballet of two wolves fighting as one. She anticipated his every move, covered his exposed flank, and he, in turn, protected her. A powerful roar escaping his lips as he tore into a rogue that had threatened her blind side. The rogues, overwhelmed by their combined ferocity, began to falter, then break. They scattered into the shadows, leaving behind a trail of blood and the acrid scent of fear. The clearing was silent, save for the ragged breaths of the surviving pack members and the low growl that still vibrated in Theo's chest. He slowly shifted back, his body aching, his fur matted with blood, some of it his own, some of it the rogue's. He looked at her, still in her wolf form, her silver fur stained, her eyes a wild, untamed gold. Slowly, carefully, she shifted back, her body trembling with exhaustion and the aftermath of battle. She stood before him, vulnerable, exposed, her eyes meeting his. The rage was still there, lurking in the depths of his blue eyes, but beneath it, a new emotion stirred. Confusion, gratitude, a hesitant flicker of something akin to understanding. "Why?" he rasped, his voice hoarse, his gaze sweeping over her bloodied form. "Why did you come back?" She didn't answer directly. Instead, she looked at the injured pack members, at the devastation wrought by the rogues. She looked at him, at his tired, wounded face. "The bond," she finally whispered, her voice raw. "It called me. You needed me." He stared at her, his expression unreadable. The truth of her words resonated with him. He had felt it too, that desperate pull, that undeniable need for her presence. It was a horrifying, inescapable reality. "You saved my life," he said, the words heavy with unspoken implications. She flinched, the memory of her confession still a fresh wound. "I almost took it once too," she countered, her voice laced with bitterness. "You'll never forget that, will you?" He closed his eyes for a moment, a muscle jumping in his jaw. When he opened them, the raw pain was evident. "No," he admitted, his voice a low growl. "I won't. But you saved my pack tonight. You saved me." The weight of their shared history, of their inescapable future, hung heavy in the air. The bond, still thrumming with the aftermath of battle, pulsated between them, a tangible force, pulling them into an agonizing embrace. He took a step towards her, hesitant, cautious. She didn't recoil this time. She stood her ground, her gaze fixed on his, a silent challenge, a silent plea. "What do we do?" he asked, the question a desperate whisper in the vast silence. "I don't know," she confessed, her voice barely audible. "But we can't ignore it. The Bondi, it won't let us." The truth of her words resonated with him. He had tried to fight it, to deny it, but the universe had a cruel, unwavering sense of humor. He was bound to the woman who had killed his mate, and she, in turn, was bound to him. He looked at the wounded, exhausted faces of his pack members. He looked at her, standing before him, battered but defiant. He was an alpha. His duty was to his pack, to their survival, to their future. And somehow, impossibly, his future was now inextricably linked with hers. "Come back to the house," he finally said, his voice laced with a weariness that went bone deep. "We need to talk. All of us." The "all of us" was significant. It meant the elders, his betas, the core of his pack. It meant facing them, facing their judgment, facing the impossible truth. But there was no other way. The bond demanded it. She nodded, a silent acceptance of the agonizing path that lay ahead. Together, they walked back towards the house, the silence between them heavy with unspoken words, with a shared burden, with the terrifying, undeniable truth of their intertwined destinies. The moon, a silent witness, cast their long shadows before them, two figures bound by fate, walking towards an uncertain future. The Alpha's den, usually a place of warmth and camaraderie, was hushed, filled with a palpable tension. The pack elders sat around the large stone fireplace, their faces etched with concern, their gazes shifting between Theo and Rune. His betas, strong and loyal, stood sentinel, their expressions a mixture of confusion and apprehension. Theo, still weary from the fight, stood before them, Rune at his side. She felt the weight of their scrutiny, the silent questions that hung in the air. The bond pulsed, a constant reminder of the impossible situation they found themselves in. "I have something to tell you all," Theo began, his voice grave, cutting through the silence. He didn't look at Rune, his gaze fixed on the flickering flames in the hearth. "Something important." He recounted the events of the ambush, describing Rune's sudden appearance, her ferocity in battle, her undeniable role in saving his life and the lives of several pack members. He spoke with quiet conviction, his words painting a picture of a fearless warrior, a vital ally. Then he paused, taking a deep breath, the confession a heavy weight on his tongue. "And now," he continued, his voice strained, "the truth. This wolf, Rooney, she is my mate." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Murmurs erupted, a cacophony of shock and disbelief. Eyes widened, some filled with confusion, others with outrage. Theo raised a hand, silencing the rising clamor. "I know what you're thinking," he said, his voice firm, unwavering. "How can this be? My previous mate Alara, her death, it was not random. It was connected to Rune." He looked at Rune then, his gaze heavy with pain and accusation. "Rune was involved in the blood war that claimed Ilara's life. She was the one who delivered the final blow." The room erupted. Shouts of anger, cries of betrayal, demands for explanation filled the air. His betas stepped forward, protective, their eyes blazing with fury. One, a large, grizzled wolf named Kale, took a menacing step towards Rune. "She killed our Luna," Kale roared, his voice thick with grief and rage. "She deserves no mercy. She deserves death." Rune flinched, but she stood her ground, her gaze meeting Kale's, then sweeping across the enraged faces of the pack. She expected this. She deserved it. Theo stepped in front of her, shielding her, his back to Kale, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. "She saved our lives tonight, Kale," he said, his voice imbued with the unyielding authority of an alpha. "She fought beside us. She bled for us. And the bondi, it is undeniable." "The bond be damned!" Another voice cried out. "She is a murderer, a Blackwood. How can you stand by her?" Rune's breath hitched at the mention of her old pack name, the one she had tried to shed, to bury with the dead. Blackwood. It was a name synonymous with bloodshed, with a history of fierce, often brutal, defense of their territory. The Blackwood pack was decimated, Theo said, his voice strained. Rune was one of the few survivors. She was fighting for her life, cornered by a relentless enemy. She acted in self-defense. He turned to face his pack, his eyes pleading, yet resolute. "I understand your anger. I share it. My heart is torn. But the bond is a sacred thing. It is not something we can simply ignore or cast aside." Silence descended again, heavy and uncomfortable. The pack elders exchanged glances, their wisdom etched on their faces. They understood the complexities of the mate bond, its unbreakable nature, its profound influence on an alpha. Elder Maeve, a wise, ancient wolf with silver hair and piercing eyes, finally spoke. "Theo, my alpha," she said, her voice soft but clear. "The bond is indeed sacred, but so too is the memory of our Luna, and the trust of your pack. We need answers, Rune. We need to hear your story, fully, without omission. Only then can we begin to understand." Rune looked at Theo, then at the assembled pack. This was it. The moment of reckoning. Her life hung in the balance, her fate in their hands. She took a deep breath, steeling herself. "My pack, the Blackwood pack," she began, her voice trembling slightly, but gaining strength with each word. "We were always fiercely protective of our borders. We had a long-standing feud with the Crimson Claw Pack, generations of skirmishes. But this time, it was different. They launched an all-out assault. They wanted our land, our resources. They wanted to annihilate us." She painted a vivid picture of the brutal war, the relentless attacks, the dwindling numbers of her pack. She described the desperation, the hunger, the constant fear. "We were cornered in the Ironwood Gorge," she continued, her voice raw with emotion. "There were so few of us left. We fought until our last breath. I saw my brother fall. My parents, they were massacred before my eyes." Her voice broke, a sob catching in her throat. "I was running, trying to find a way out, any way out. I was injured, bleeding. And then I saw her. Your Luna." Her gaze met Theo's, a silent plea for understanding. She was at the forefront of the attack, fierce, powerful. She had cornered me. Her teeth were bared, her eyes filled with a terrifying resolve. I didn't know who she was, only that she was part of the enemy, and she was about to end me. She paused, remembering the raw terror, the instinct that had surged through her, overriding everything else. I reacted. It was pure instinct, survival. I lunged. My claws, they found her throat. It was quick. She fell. And then I ran. I just ran, leaving everything behind. The silence that followed was heavy, pregnant with the weight of her confession. Tears streamed down her face, unbidden, a testament to the trauma she had endured. She had killed his mate, the woman he loved, and there was no changing that. Theo's face was a mixture of agony and understanding. He saw the genuine remorse in her eyes, the raw pain of her memories. He knew her kind was renowned for their fierce loyalty, their protective instincts. He knew that, in a war, lines blurred, and survival became the only rule. Elder Maeve broke the silence. "A tragic turn of events," she sighed, her gaze sympathetic. "A warrior fighting for her life, a Luna defending her pack, a terrible collision of fates." Cale, though still grim-faced, looked less outwardly hostile. He hadn't forgotten his Luna, but he had witnessed Rune's courage in battle tonight. He had seen the raw, unadulterated fear for his Alpha in her eyes. "So, what now, Alpha?" Cale asked, his voice still gruff, but devoid of the previous venom. "The bond is there. The truth is out. How can we move forward?" Theo looked at Rune, a silent question passing between them. Then he faced his pack, his gaze firm, resolute. "We grieve," he said, his voice strong, though laced with sorrow. "We grieve for Ilara, for the life she lost, for the future we envisioned with her. That grief will always be with us. But we also acknowledge the bond. It is a gift, a sacred union that cannot be broken without tearing the very fabric of our being." He paused, his eyes sweeping over each pack member. "Rune has saved me. She has proven her courage. She has shared her truth, however painful it is for us all to hear. We cannot erase the past, but we can choose how we move forward. We will accept this bond. Rune will be our Luna." A murmur rippled through the pack again, this time less hostile, more hesitant. Acceptance. It was a monumental step. "She will undergo the traditional trials," Theo continued, his voice firm, leaving no room for argument. "She will prove her loyalty, her dedication to this pack. And she will earn your trust, just as she has earned mine." Rune looked at him, a flicker of hope amidst the despair. Trials. It was a chance to prove herself, to atone, however small, for the impossible tragedy that had bound them. Elder Maeve nodded slowly, her eyes thoughtful. A wise decision, Alpha. This is not an easy path for any of us, but perhaps from this tragedy, a new strength can emerge. The meeting concluded, the air still thick with tension, but also with a grudging acceptance. Some pack members still eyed Rune with suspicion, with lingering resentment. But others, those who had seen her fight, who had seen the desperate look in Theo's eyes as she shielded him, began to look at her with a reluctant curiosity. Theo led Rune back to his private chambers. The silence was heavy, but no longer filled with the searing pain of accusation. It was a silence of exhaustion, of profound uncertainty. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice softer now, his gaze filled with a familiar concern that pierced through her hardened exterior. "As all right as I can be," she admitted, her voice hoarse. "Thank you, Theo, for defending me, for telling them." He sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. "It wasn't easy, and it's not over. There's a long road ahead." He looked at her, his blue eyes holding hers. "You will have to work hard, Rune, to earn their trust, to earn my trust. This bonded is there, but trust must be built." She nodded, her resolve hardening. "I know. I'm ready." He reached out, slowly, hesitantly, and took her hand. This time, there was no recoil, no flinching. Their fingers intertwined, a silent acknowledgement of the bond that, despite everything, still connected them, still pulled them together with an undeniable force. The hum, once a scream of agony, now pulsed with a quiet, fragile hope. The path ahead was fraught with challenges, with lingering shadows of the past. But for the first time in a long time, Rune felt a flicker of something she hadn't dared to feel a chance for a future. A future with him, the Alpha who had saved her, and whose world she had, unknowingly, irrevocably shattered. The days that followed were a grueling test of Rune's resilience. The trials Theo spoke of were not formal rituals, but a constant, subtle scrutiny from the pack. Every action, every word, every interaction was weighed, judged, and whispered about. Some pack members still offered cold shoulders, their gazes hostile. Others maintained a polite distance, their curiosity tempered with suspicion. Rune threw herself into the work. She helped the healers, assisting Ilara, who, surprisingly, showed a quiet compassion towards her. Ilara, the gentle healer, had been Ilara's friend, her confidant. Rune expected resentment, but Ilara's sorrow was tinged with a quiet understanding, a recognition of the brutal realities of war. She taught Rune about herbs, about setting bones, about comforting the sick. Rune learned quickly, her inherent empathy shining through her reserved demeanor. She trained with the warriors, pushing her physical limits. Kale, still gruff, acknowledged her strength, her speed, her unwavering spirit. He was harsh, unyielding, but fair. He challenged her, pushed her until her muscles screamed and her lungs burned, and she met every challenge head-on, refusing to falter. She helped with patrols, her heightened senses invaluable in identifying rogue scents. She helped hunt, her swiftness and cunning proving to be an asset. Theo watched her, silently. He saw her dedication, her tireless efforts. He saw the quiet determination in her eyes, the way she met every challenge, every skeptical glance, with quiet strength. The bond, no longer screaming with agony, hummed with a quiet intensity, pulling them closer, strengthening with each shared moment, each silent acknowledgement of their intertwined fates. One afternoon, while she was helping repair a damaged fence on the pack's perimeter, Cale approached her. He stood, arms crossed, his gaze assessing. "You're good with your hands," he grunted, a grudging compliment. "For a Blackwood." Rune paused, a small smile touching her lips. "We had to be self-sufficient," she replied, her voice soft. "No one helped us." Cale's gaze softened almost imperceptibly. "I remember stories of the Blackwoods, fierce warriors, loyal to their own." He paused, then sighed. "Ilara, she was gentle, kind, but she would have understood. The brutality of war, the instinct to survive." It wasn't an apology, but it was the closest Cale had come to acceptance. Rune felt a small tremor of hope. That evening, Theo found her by the river, skipping stones across the surface of the water. The setting sun cast a golden glow, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. "You're doing well," he said, his voice quiet, joining her by the water's edge. "They're starting to see it, the real you." She turned to him, a shy smile gracing her lips. "It's still hard. Some of them, they look at me like I'm a ghost." "You are," he admitted, his gaze intense. "A ghost of a past that haunts us all. But you're also a presence, a future. And they're starting to accept that." He reached out, his hand gently covering hers, stilling her motion. The familiar warmth spread through her, a comforting balm. The bond thrummed, a steady, rhythmic beat, a symphony of their shared souls. "The painy, it's still there," he confessed, his voice low, his gaze fixed on the shimmering water. "For Ilara, for what was lost." He looked at her, his blue eyes filled with a raw vulnerability that stole her breath. "But so is this. This connection. It's growing, Rune. And I can't deny it any longer." Her heart swelled, a mixture of joy and profound sadness. He was acknowledging it. Not just the bond, but the possibility of something more. Something new. Something born from tragedy. "I know," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "It's growing for me, too." He turned fully to her, his other hand reaching out to cup her face, his thumb gently stroking her cheek. His eyes searched hers, a silent question in their depths. "Can we try?" he asked, his voice barely audible, a desperate plea. "Can we try to build something new, from the ashes of what was lost?" Tears welled in her eyes, hot and cleansing. "Yes," she breathed, her voice filled with a desperate hope. "Yes, Theo, we can try." He leaned in, slowly, tentatively, and then his lips met hers. It was a soft, hesitant kiss at first, filled with unspoken pain and tentative hope. Then, as the bond surged, a wave of profound emotion washing over them, the kiss deepened, becoming a desperate embrace, a silent promise to face the future together, no matter how uncertain. The acceptance within the pack was gradual, a slow thaw. Rune continued to prove herself, her actions speaking louder than any words. She helped establish a new, more secure perimeter defense, utilizing her knowledge of rogue tactics. She helped train new recruits, her combat skills honed by years of survival. She even began to share stories of her own pack, not just the tragic end, but the traditions, the strength, the resilience of the Blackwood wolves. Slowly, grudgingly, the pack began to see her not as the killer of their Luna, but as their Luna-to-be, a strong, capable wolf who had survived unimaginable hardship and was now dedicated to their well-being. One clear morning, as the sun painted the forest in vibrant hues, Theo gathered the pack. The tension was still present, but it was overshadowed by a sense of anticipation. "Today," Theo announced, his voice ringing with authority and pride, "we formally welcome Rune as our Luna. She has proven her strength, her loyalty, her dedication. She has faced her past, and she has embraced her future with us." Rune stood beside him, her heart pounding with a mixture of nerves and profound gratitude. She looked out at the faces of the pack, some still guarded, but many now filled with respect, with a burgeoning trust. Cale nodded, a rare, almost imperceptible smile touching his lips. Ilara, her eyes shining with warmth, offered a gentle nod of encouragement. The traditional Luna ceremony was simple, yet deeply symbolic. Rune pledged her loyalty to the pack, to its alpha, to its future. Theo, in turn, pledged his commitment to her, to their bond, to their shared destiny. As he placed a silver bracelet, engraved with the symbol of his pack, on her wrist, a powerful hum resonated through the clearing, a wave of acceptance and recognition from the very essence of the pack. The bond between them solidified, no longer just a private connection, but a recognized, accepted union. It was a complex, layered bond, forever intertwined with the ghost of a past tragedy, yet blossoming with the fragile promise of a new beginning. Life in the pack settled into a rhythm. Rune found her place, not just as Theo's mate, but as a valued member of the community. She worked tirelessly, her innate desire to protect and nurture finding an outlet in her new role. She helped establish a better communication system between the pack's hunting parties and the den, preventing unnecessary risks. She trained the younger wolves in tracking and stealth, sharing the hard-won lessons of her own survival. Her relationship with Theo deepened, growing stronger with each passing day. The initial tenderness evolved into a profound love built on shared experiences, mutual respect, and the undeniable pull of their bond. They spent hours talking, sharing stories of their pasts, their hopes for the future. He never shied away from the difficult conversations about Ilara, and Rune, in turn, never shied away from acknowledging the pain she had caused, the impossible circumstances that had led to it. They learned to navigate the delicate balance of grief and love, of remembrance and forging ahead. One evening, as they lay together in his arms, the scent of him, of home, wrapping around her, Rune looked up at him. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked, her voice soft, barely a whisper. "This? Us?" He tightened his embrace, pressing a kiss to her hair. "Never," he murmured, his voice firm. "It's not what I expected. It's not how I imagined my life would be. But you are my destiny, Rune. Our bonded, it is unyielding. And I would not trade this, not for anything." He paused, then continued, his voice thick with emotion. "The pain of losing Ilara will always be a part of me. But you brought me back from the brink. You showed me that even in the deepest sorrow there can be light, and for that I will always be grateful." Rune closed her eyes, tears prickling. They had built something extraordinary from the ashes of tragedy. A love forged in fire, tempered by pain, and strengthened by an unbreakable bond. The future held its challenges, of course. There would always be whispers, always memories. But the pack, united under Theo and Rune's leadership, was stronger, more resilient. They had faced their past, embraced their truth, and found a way to heal, together. One day, as the first signs of spring bloomed, painting the forest in vibrant greens and soft pastels, Rune found herself walking through the woods, a quiet contentment settling over her. The scent of new growth filled the air, mingling with the familiar, comforting scent of her pack. She was Luna. She was mate. She was home. A small twig snapped behind her, and she turned, her senses alert, but her heart unafraid. It was Theo, his wolf form graceful and powerful, his blue eyes shining with a familiar warmth. He padded towards her, then nudged her gently, inviting her to shift. She smiled, the joy unbidden, pure. She shifted, her body morphing, her fur receding, her human form emerging, strong and whole. He shifted too, his hand immediately finding hers, their fingers intertwining, a silent testament to their unbreakable connection. They walked hand in hand, through the blossoming forest, two souls irrevocably bound, walking a path they had forged from unimaginable hardship. The sun filtered through the leaves, dappling the ground in a mosaic of light and shadow. The past was a shadow, but it no longer consumed them. The present was a tangible reality, a blossoming love, a resilient pack, and a future, while still unwritten, was theirs to shape, together, under the watchful gaze of the moon and the silent strength of their extraordinary bond. The story of the alpha who was saved from rogues, only to find his mate was his beloved's killer, had found its unexpected, hopeful ending. Their love, born from tragedy, had bloomed in the most unlikely of places, proving that even in the darkest of times, hope and love could always find a way. The spring turned to summer, and with it, a new vibrancy bloomed within the pack. Rune, now undeniably their Luna, initiated several projects aimed at strengthening the community. She spearheaded the creation of a communal garden, envisioning a space where all pack members could contribute to cultivating fresh produce, fostering a deeper sense of unity and self-sufficiency. Elder Maeve, with her ancient knowledge of plants, became Rune's trusted advisor in this endeavor, their shared purpose bridging the last vestiges of Rune's past and present. The younger wolves, initially hesitant, soon delighted in the hands-on work, their laughter echoing through the rows of burgeoning plants. Beyond the garden, Rune focused on strengthening the pack's defenses, a grim but necessary lesson learned from her own pack's demise. She worked closely with Kale, developing new patrol routes and training exercises that emphasized stealth and tactical awareness over brute force. Kale, recognizing her exceptional skills, began to defer to her judgment in strategic matters, a silent acknowledgement of her warrior spirit and invaluable experience. Their relationship, once strained by suspicion, had evolved into one of grudging respect and, surprisingly, a dry camaraderie. They often spent hours sketching out scenarios, their voices a low murmur as they discussed flanking maneuvers and escape routes. Theo watched Rune with a pride that swelled his chest. She moved with an innate grace, a quiet authority that commanded respect without demanding it. The bond between them had deepened into an intricate tapestry of shared thoughts, unspoken understanding, and an unwavering love. Their nights were filled with a comforting closeness, their days with a shared purpose. They navigated the subtle challenges of pack politics with a united front, each leaning on the other's strengths. One evening, as the stars twinkled like scattered diamonds in the inky sky, Theo and Rune sat by the roaring fire, the comforting scent of burning wood filling the air. The pack was gathered, their faces illuminated by the dancing flames, their voices a low hum of contented conversation. It was a scene of peace and belonging, a stark contrast to the chaos and isolation that had once defined Rune's existence. "You've truly transformed us, Rune," Theo murmured, his voice soft, his gaze tender as he watched her interacting with the younger pups, who clung to her, captivated by her stories of forest lore. She turned to him, a gentle smile gracing her lips. "It's not me, Theo. It's all of us. This packet has a strength I've rarely seen. A resilience." She paused, her gaze meeting his, filled with a profound gratitude. "And you gave me a home, a purpose." He reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers. "We found it together," he corrected, his thumb stroking the back of her hand. "A bond like ours, it demands a future, no matter how complicated the past." The bond pulsed with his words, a warm, resonant hum that echoed deep within her soul. The lingering shadows of her past, the ghost of Ilara, were still present, a quiet presence in their lives, but they no longer consumed them. They had found a way to honor the past without being defined by it, to build a future that embraced both sorrow and joy. As summer reached its peak, a new unease began to stir in the territories bordering Theo's pack. Scouts reported increased rogue activity, not just isolated incidents, but coordinated movements, a pattern that suggested a rising threat. Rune, with her first-hand experience of large-scale rogue attacks, recognized the ominous signs immediately. "This isn't random scavenging," she stated during a council meeting, her voice serious, her gaze sweeping over the grim faces of the elders and betas. "This is a build-up. They're testing our defenses, assessing our strength." Kale nodded, his expression grim. "She's right, Alpha. Their numbers are growing, and their aggression is escalating." Theo's jaw tightened. He had brought peace and stability to his pack after years of smaller skirmishes. The thought of another large conflict weighed heavily on him. But he was an alpha, and his primary duty was to protect his people. "We will prepare," he declared, his voice ringing with authority. "Double the patrols, fortify our borders. Every wolf will be ready." Rune stepped forward. "I can help with training the younger warriors, Theo, and mapping out potential ambush points. My former pack, we knew how to fight defensively against superior numbers." His eyes met hers, a silent acknowledgement of the painful yet invaluable knowledge she possessed. "Agreed, Luna," he said, the title now flowing naturally from his lips, imbued with respect and trust. Days turned into a fever pitch of preparation. Rune worked tirelessly, her sharp strategic mind invaluable. She taught the warriors about flanking maneuvers, about using the terrain to their advantage, about silent movement through the forest. She shared lessons learned in blood and tears, lessons that could mean the difference between life and death. Her calm demeanor, even in the face of impending conflict, instilled confidence in the nervous recruits. One afternoon, as she drilled a group of warriors in evasive techniques, a young she-wolf, barely out of puphood, stumbled and scraped her knee. Tears welled in the pup's eyes, not just from the pain, but from frustration. Rune knelt beside her, her voice gentle. "It's all right, little one," she said, her touch surprisingly comforting as she examined the scrape. "Every warrior falls. The strength isn't in never falling, but in getting back up and learning from it." The young wolf looked at Rune, her tears slowly subsiding, replaced by a flicker of admiration. In that moment, Rune wasn't just the Luna, the formidable warrior. She was a mentor, a comforting presence, someone who understood their struggles. Small moments like these, repeated daily, slowly cemented her place in the hearts of the pack. The attack came under the cloak of a moonless night. The rogues, numbering far more than anticipated, launched a coordinated assault from multiple directions, the air filled with snarls, battle cries, and the terrifying scent of blood and fear. Theo was a force of nature, his silver wolf form a blur of ferocity, leading his warriors with unwavering courage. Rune, fighting beside him, was equally formidable. Her movements were fluid, precise, honed by a lifetime of combat. She moved through the chaos like a ghost, striking down rogues with deadly efficiency, protecting the flanks, anticipating every move. She saw Theo take a brutal hit to his side, heard his grunt of pain, and instantly covered him, tearing into the rogue that had inflicted the wound. The battle raged for hours. The pack, bolstered by Rune's strategic training and Theo's inspiring leadership, fought with a desperate resolve. They were outnumbered, but they were united, protecting their home, their families. As dawn approached, casting a pale, hesitant light through the trees, the tide began to turn. The rogues, their numbers significantly diminished, started to break ranks, their feral cries replaced by whimpers of retreat. They melted back into the shadows, leaving behind a scarred battlefield and the exhausted, bloodied remnants of Theo's pack. Theo, leaning heavily against a tree, his breath coming in ragged gasps, watched the last of the rogues vanish. His body ached, every muscle screaming in protest, but his spirit soared. They had won. Rune, her fur matted with blood and dirt, slowly shifted back, her body trembling with exhaustion. She walked towards him, her eyes searching his, a profound relief washing over her as she saw the unwavering light in their depths. "Are you all right?" she whispered, her voice hoarse, reaching out to touch the wound on his side. He winced, but leaned into her touch. "I'll live," he murmured, a faint smile touching his lips. "Thanks to you." Again. He looked around at his pack, at the wounded, at the fallen, then back at Rune. The gratitude in his eyes was profound, unwavering. "You saved us, Luna," he said, his voice ringing with pride and love. You saved us. All." The words reverberated through her, filling her with a warmth that transcended the physical pain. She hadn't just saved them from rogues, she had found her place, her purpose, her family. The aftermath of the battle was a period of healing and reflection. The pack mourned their fallen, honoring their sacrifices. The wounded were tended to by Ilara and Rune, their combined skills proving invaluable. The communal garden became a place of quiet solace, a symbol of regrowth and resilience. Theo, seeing the unwavering loyalty and love that now flowed from his pack towards Rune, felt a sense of peace he hadn't known was possible. The phantom pain of Ilara's death still lingered, a dull ache, but it was overshadowed by the vibrant, undeniable presence of Rune, his mate, his Luna, the woman who had brought unexpected light into his shattered world. One cool autumn evening, months after the battle, Theo and Rune sat together on a secluded hill overlooking the packlands. The leaves were turning, painting the landscape in fiery hues, a breathtaking canvas of change and beauty. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of wood smoke and damp earth. "It wasn't an easy journey, was it?" Rune mused, leaning her head on his shoulder, her voice soft. Theo chuckled, a low rumble in his chest. "Understatement of the century. Luna." He turned his head, pressing a kiss to her temple. But it was worth it. Every agonizing step. She looked up at him, her golden eyes, so often filled with a warrior's resolve, now soft with tenderness. Do you think Ilara would understand?" He was silent for a moment, his gaze fixed on the horizon, where the setting sun painted streaks of gold and purple across the sky. "I think she would have wanted me to be happy," he finally said, his voice laced with a quiet certainty. And she would have admired your strength, Rune, your resilience, the way you fought for this pack, for me. A single tear traced a path down Rune's cheek, not of sorrow, but of profound relief and gratitude. The last vestiges of her guilt, the heavy burden she had carried for so long, began to lift. Our story, it's certainly unique, she whispered, a small, knowing smile on her lips. He saved me from Rogues, then realized I'm his mate's killer. Theo's arm tightened around her, pulling her closer. And I wouldn't change a single moment of it, he murmured, his voice husky with emotion. Because it led me to you. The bond, a living, breathing entity between them, hummed with a profound sense of completeness. It was no longer a symbol of their fractured past, but a testament to their enduring present and a promise for their interwoven future. They had found their balance, a harmony born of dissonance, a love that transcended pain and redefined destiny. As the first stars began to pierce the twilight, two souls, once broken and lost, sat intertwined, forever bound by a love as fierce and wild as the forest that embraced them. As autumn deepened, painting the packlands in fiery hues of red and gold, a subtle shift occurred within Rune. A new scent, faint yet distinct, began to mingle with her own, a sweet, earthy aroma that hinted at life blossoming within. She felt it first as a quiet flutter, a whisper of warmth in her womb, then a more undeniable presence. Fear, cold and sharp, initially pricked at her. A pup, a child. Could she, a survivor scarred by so much loss, truly nurture new life? Could she bring a pup into a world that had shown her so much brutality? The responsibility felt immense, overwhelming. She found Theo by the training grounds, observing Kale's rigorous drills. He turned, his gaze softening as it met hers. The bond thrummed with a familiar comfort, but beneath it, he sensed her unease. "Is everything all right, Luna?" he asked, his brow furrowing slightly. Rune hesitated, then took a deep breath. There was no hiding this from him. Their bond was too deep, too encompassing. "Theo," she began, her voice barely a whisper. I think I'm pregnant." His eyes widened, surprise quickly replaced by a profound joy that radiated through the bond, washing over her like a warm wave. A wide, incredulous smile spread across his face. He strode towards her, pulling her into a fierce embrace. "A pup?" he breathed, his voice thick with emotion. "Our pup." He pulled back slightly, his hands cupping her face, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "Rune, this is incredible." His unbridled happiness was a balm to her anxieties. She found herself smiling, a genuine, unburdened smile that reached her eyes. The fear didn't vanish completely, but it receded, replaced by a burgeoning hope, a sense of wonder. News of the impending arrival spread quickly through the pack, sparking a wave of excitement and anticipation. The communal garden, already a symbol of their resilience, now took on a new meaning. Ilara, the gentle healer, became Rune's closest confidant, offering wisdom and practical advice gleaned from generations of pack lore. She brewed special teas for morning sickness, shared stories of births, and helped Rune understand the subtle shifts occurring within her body. Even Kale, ever stoic, showed a rare softness. He began to organize patrols around Rune's movements, ensuring her safety with an almost paternal protectiveness. The younger wolves, especially those she had mentored, buzzed with excitement, already debating whether the pup would be a strong warrior like their Luda or a wise alpha like Theo. Rune's pregnancy was a journey of profound change. As her body swelled with new life, so too did her heart expand, making room for an unfamiliar tenderness. She found herself looking at the world with fresh eyes, seeing the delicate beauty of a budding flower, the joyful abandon of pups at play, the fierce loyalty of her adopted pack. The scars of her past, while still present, no longer felt like open wounds. They were now a part of her story, woven into the tapestry of her being, a testament to her survival and the strength that had brought her to this moment. Theo was a constant source of support, his devotion unwavering. He read to her from ancient pack scrolls, his voice a comforting rumble. He walked with her through the quiet forests, his hand always near, ready to steady her. He spoke to their unborn pup, his voice filled with a love that filled Rune's heart to overflowing. He made her feel cherished, safe, loved in a way she had never experienced. One crisp winter morning, as the first snowflakes began to fall, Rune went into labor. It was a long, arduous process, testing her strength and endurance. Theo stayed by her side throughout, his presence an anchor in the stormy waves of pain. He held her hand, whispered words of encouragement, and shared every contraction with her, his face a mask of worry and unwavering support. After what felt like an eternity, a tiny, lusty cry filled the den. A wave of profound relief and overwhelming love washed over Rune as Alara placed a small, warm bundle in her arms. It was a boy. He had a shock of dark hair, just like Theo's, and tiny wrinkled fingers that instinctively curled around her own. But it was his eyes that truly captivated her. A deep, captivating gold, the color of her own wolf eyes. Theo, tears streaming down his face, leaned over them, his voice choked with emotion. "He's perfect, Rune. Absolutely perfect." They named him Elias, meaning "the Lord is my God," a name chosen for its strength and hope. Elias, their son, a tangible symbol of their unique, improbable love story. Life with Elias brought a new dimension of joy and challenge. Rune found herself instinctively protective, her warrior instincts now channeled into nurturing and safeguarding her son. She learned to balance her duties as Luna with the demands of motherhood, often bringing Elias with her to meetings, his presence softening the sternest of faces. Elias grew quickly, a healthy, happy pup, full of boundless energy and a curious spirit. He was the embodiment of the pack's future, a living testament to their resilience and their capacity for healing. He was loved fiercely by Theo, adored by Rune, and cherished by the entire pack. Even Kale, who seemed to have a perpetual scowl for the world, would secretly sneak Elias's treats, a gentle smile gracing his usually stern lips. One particularly warm summer afternoon, a few years after Elias's birth, Rune watched him playing in the communal garden, his laughter echoing through the rows of ripe vegetables. He was chasing butterflies, his small body a blur of joyful motion. Theo joined her, his arm encircling her waist, pulling her close. "He has your eyes," Theo murmured, his gaze filled with adoration as he watched their son. Rune smiled, leaning into his warmth. "And your stubbornness." They stood there for a long moment, simply observing, a silent contentment settling over them. The past, with all its pain and turmoil, felt distant, a fading echo. The present was vibrant, alive with the sounds of their son's laughter, the murmur of the pack, the unwavering strength of their love. "We built something incredible, didn't we?" Rune whispered, her voice filled with wonder. Theo pressed a kiss to her temple. "We did, Luna. From the ashes of a tragic past, we forged a future. Together." Their story was a testament to the enduring power of the mate bond, to the capacity for forgiveness, and to the strength of love that dared to defy fate. Rune, the rogue who had killed an alpha's mate, had become the beloved Luna, and in doing so had saved not just herself, but the very soul of the pack. And in the golden eyes of their son, Elias, lived the promise of a future where love, acceptance, and resilience reigned supreme, forever intertwined with the unique and extraordinary tale of his parents. Years flowed into a steady rhythm of pack life, each season bringing new joys and new challenges. Elias grew from a playful pup into a strong, inquisitive young wolf, inheriting Theo's steady wisdom and Rune's sharp wit and fierce determination. His golden eyes, a constant reminder of his mother's lineage, held a spark of his father's gentle authority. The memory of the past rogue war and Ilara's tragic death remained a part of the pack's collective history, a solemn reminder of the fragility of peace. Yet, it was no longer a wound that festered but a scar that spoke of resilience. The story of Rune's arrival, once met with suspicion, was now woven into the pack's oral traditions, evolving from a tale of a mysterious, dangerous outsider to one of a brave survivor who became their improbable Luna, securing their future. Rune and Theo's bond deepened with time, reaching a profound level of understanding that transcended words. They could communicate with a mere glance, a shared breath, sensing each other's thoughts and emotions through the powerful hum that was the very essence of their connection. Their love, born from such an unlikely and painful beginning, had matured into an unshakable foundation for their pack. One crisp autumn morning, as Elias, now a spirited adolescent, was out on a training run with Kale, Theo, and Rune stood together at the highest point of their territory, overlooking the vast expanse of their lands. The forest below them was a tapestry of vibrant fall colors, stretching as far as the eye could see. "He's growing so fast," Rune murmured, a soft smile on her lips as she watched Elias's swift, powerful strides in the distance. Theo wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close. "He has your speed, Luna, and your heart." He paused, his gaze sweeping over their peaceful territory. This is what we fought for. This peace, this future." Rune leaned into his embrace, a profound sense of contentment settling over her. The journey had been arduous, marked by pain and impossible choices, but standing there with the man she loved, watching their son thrive in the safe haven they had built, she knew every sacrifice had been worth it. The echoes of the blood war had faded, replaced by the vibrant symphony of life within their pack. "And it started with you saving me from rogues," she said, her voice a gentle whisper. Theo chuckled, a warm rumble in his chest. "Little did I know, the rogue I saved would turn out to be the fiercest, most beautiful Luna any alpha could ever dream of." He turned to her, his blue eyes sparkling with love and a hint of playful mischief. "And the one who kept me on my toes, constantly reminded me to look beyond the obvious." Rune laughed softly, a sound that brought genuine joy to his heart. "You needed that, Alpha. You were far too stoic." He kissed her then, a deep, tender kiss that spoke of years of shared understanding, enduring love, and an unbreakable bond. It was a kiss that sealed their history, celebrated their present, and promised an infinite future. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the land, but the warmth between them remained, a beacon of their unlikely and extraordinary love story. Their journey, forged in the fires of conflict and redemption, was a testament to the idea that even from the darkest beginnings, light could emerge, shaping destinies and building legacies that would last for generations to come. The pack, the land, their son Elias, all were living proof of the powerful truth that sometimes the very person you least expect can be the one to save you, in more ways than you could ever imagine. And in doing so, they not only found their own healing, but forged a new, unbreakable path for everyone around them. As the years continued their gentle, relentless march, Elias grew into a remarkable young man, his bond with both Theo and Rune strong and unwavering. He inherited his father's calm leadership and his mother's strategic brilliance, often spending hours with Rune poring over old maps, discussing pack history, and planning future initiatives for expansion and cooperate. Resource management. He learned from Theo the intricacies of diplomacy and the delicate balance of maintaining peace with neighboring packs, while from Rune he absorbed the hard-won lessons of survival, vigilance, and the absolute necessity of car. Inner strength. The pack thrived under Theo and Rune's joint leadership. The communal garden flourished, now supplemented by thriving livestock and a well-managed forestry program. Their territory was secure, their alliances strong, and the younger generations knew only prosperity and peace, a stark contrast to the turbulent times their parents had endured. The annual pack gatherings, once tinged with the quiet solemnity of remembrance for past losses, now vibrated with joyous laughter, the playful antics of the pups, and the contented murmur of a united community. Rune, though still carrying the echoes of her past, had found a profound peace. The guilt that once gnawed at her heart had softened into a quiet understanding of fate's cruel twists. She often visited Ilara's resting place, not with sorrow, but with a sense of shared history, acknowledging the woman whose life had, inadvertently, paved the way for her own extraordinary journey. Theo would sometimes join her, standing silently by her side, a testament to their shared healing and the enduring strength of their bond. One evening, with a full moon casting an ethereal glow over the packlands, Theo and Rune stood on the porch of their den, watching Elias lead a group of younger warriors on a nighttime patrol. His movements were fluid and confident, a reflection of the training he'd received and the inherent leadership within him. "He's ready, isn't he?" Rune whispered, her voice filled with a mother's pride. Theo nodded, his gaze tender as he watched their son. "He is, ready to take on the mantle. When the time comes." He turned to Rune, his hand finding hers, their fingers intertwining in a familiar, comforting clasp. "And it's because of you, Luna. Your strength, your wisdom, your courage. You shaped him, just as you've shaped this pack." Rune leaned her head on his shoulder, a contented sigh escaping her lips. "And you, Alpha, gave me the chance to do it. You saw past the impossible, past the pain, and chose to believe in a different path." He tightened his grip on her hand. "There was no other path, my Rune. The bond always pulls true, even when we fight it, especially when we fight it." They stood in comfortable silence for a long moment, the cool night air wrapping around them. The forest hummed with the sounds of the night, the distant hoot of an owl, the rustle of leaves, the faint, comforting scent of wolf. Their story was a legend whispered among the pack, a tale of tragedy and triumph, of an Alpha's impossible choice, and a Luna who defied all expectations. It was a story of how love, in its most profound and complicated forms, could heal the deepest wounds and forge a future more beautiful than anything imagined. The legacy they were building wasn't just in the prosperity of their pack or the strength of their defenses. It was in the very fabric of their existence, a testament to the power of acceptance, the enduring nature of true partnership, and the unwavering belief that even from the most devastating of beginnings, a future filled with hope and profound love could bloom. The decades that followed saw the pack flourish beyond anything Theo or Rune could have envisioned. Elias, when he eventually stepped into the role of Alpha, did so with the full support and love of his parents, who moved gracefully into revered elder status. He carried forward their legacy of unity and strength, his leadership a harmonious blend of their distinct wisdom. The pack continued to grow, not just in numbers, but in spirit, a testament to the profound shift Rune had brought. Rune and Theo spent their later years often by the river where they had first truly connected, or walking through the now sprawling communal gardens, reminiscing about the early, tumultuous days. Their conversations were quiet, filled with the comfortable silence of a shared lifetime. The bond, so tumultuous in its genesis, had settled into a deep, unwavering hum, a constant, gentle melody that resonated between their souls. It was no longer a forced connection, but the very essence of their intertwined beings. One crisp autumn afternoon, as the leaves painted the forest in their final brilliant display, Rune felt a familiar shift within her. It was subtle at first, a gentle weakening, a quiet drawing inward of her life force. She looked at Theo, sitting beside her on their favorite weathered bench overlooking the valley. He met her gaze, and she saw the immediate recognition in his eyes, the subtle tremor of their shared bond, acknowledging the inevitable. There was no fear, only a profound peace, intertwined with a gentle sorrow. "It's time, isn't it, my love?" Theo whispered, his voice husky, his hand reaching for hers, intertwining their fingers. Rune squeezed his hand, a small, knowing smile gracing her lips. "It is. And it has been a magnificent journey." She paused, her gaze sweeping over the vibrant landscape, the thriving pack below. "More than I ever dared to dream of, after all I'd been through." Theo's eyes glistened with unshed tears, but his grip on her hand remained firm, unwavering. "You brought me back to life, Rune. You brought light back to my world, and to this pack. You healed us all." The bond, now a soft, ethereal glow, enveloped them both. Memories cascaded through Rune's mind, the terror of the rogue ambush, the searing pain of his betrayal, the slow, agonizing journey to acceptance, the joy of Elias's birth, the quiet strength of their shared life. All of it, every single moment, had led to this peaceful conclusion. She felt the wolf within her stir one last time, not with a roar of battle, but with a gentle sigh of contentment. The golden light in her eyes flickered, then dimmed, as her breath softened, becoming lighter, more ephemeral. Theo held her close, his heart aching, yet filled with an overwhelming tide of love and gratitude. He felt her essence begin to recede, the vibrant hum of their bond slowly fading into a whisper. He pressed a kiss to her brow, murmuring her name, Rune, a promise of eternal remembrance. When Elias found them later, the setting sun painting them in hues of orange and purple, Rune lay peacefully in Theo's arms, a serene smile on her lips. Theo looked up at his son, his eyes filled with a grief that spoke of profound loss, but also with a love that transcended death. "She found her peace, my son," Theo whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "She truly found it." Elias knelt beside them, his hand resting gently on his mother's peaceful form. He understood. His mother, the fierce warrior, the improbable Luna, had completed her extraordinary journey. Her legacy was not just in the stories told by the fire, but in the very breath of every pack member, in the strength and unity that defined them. Theo, now truly an elder alpha, continued to guide his pack, his wisdom deepened by a lifetime of love and loss. He carried Rune's memory not as a burden, but as a guiding light, her quiet strength and unwavering spirit forever etched into the heart of their territory. The tale of, "He saved me from rogues then, realized I'm his mate's killer," became more than a story. It became the very foundation of their pack's identity, a testament to the enduring power of love, forgiveness, and the unpredictable, beautiful tapestry of destiny. For Theo, Rune would forever be the ghost of his past, the light of his present, and the enduring soul of his future, forever bound by a love that defied all odds. Even as years turned into decades, the essence of Rune's spirit lingered within the pack, woven into the very fabric of their existence. Her teachings on resilience and resourcefulness were passed down through generations. The communal garden, her proudest endeavor, continued to thrive, a lush symbol of the pack's ability to grow and adapt. Elias, now an elder alpha himself, often found himself echoing his mother's quiet wisdom during council meetings, a subtle nod to her lasting influence. Theo, a revered patriarch, lived out his long years surrounded by the love of his family and pack. He'd often sit by the river, a place where the scent of Rune's spirit seemed strongest, and reflect on their improbable journey. The image of her fierce golden eyes, her unwavering courage, and the gentle strength of her love were as vivid to him in his twilight years as they had been on the day he first rescued her. The story of Theo and Rune, a tale woven with threads of pain, redemption, and an unbreakable bond, became the bedrock of the pack's identity. It was recited at every naming ceremony, every coming-of-age ritual, and every gathering around the fire. It taught them that true strength lay not just in physical prowess, but in the capacity for understanding, forgiveness, and the courage to embrace destiny, even when it defied all expectations. One particularly cold winter night, as snow softly blanketed the packlands, Theo felt a profound sense of peace settle over him. He was in his den, surrounded by the quiet hum of the pack, a lifetime of memories swirling gently in his mind. He closed his eyes, and in the soft glow of the fireplace, he saw her, Rune, standing as she had been the first time he truly saw her, battered but defiant, her eyes holding the weight of a painful past. Then, her features softened, and her eyes shimmered with the gold of her wolf, a welcoming warmth emanating from her. He felt the ancient bond, that powerful, undeniable connection, surge within him one last time, not as a silent hum, but as a vibrant, resonant chord, pulling him towards an eternal embrace. His breath hitched, a soft sigh escaping his lips as he reached out, not to empty air, but to the tangible presence of his Luna, his mate, his Rune. He finally stepped across the threshold, not into oblivion, but into the everlasting light of their shared bond, forever reunited with the woman who had shattered his world only to rebuild it, stronger and more beautiful than before. The pack found him the next morning, peaceful in his sleep, a gentle smile on his lips. Elias, now the sole alpha, felt the profound emptiness of his father's passing, but also a deep sense of contentment. He knew Theo had gone to be with his Luna, the one who had saved him from rogues, and then in a cruel twist of fate had been revealed as his mate's killer, only to ultimately become the very soul of his existence. Their legend, one of the most poignant and powerful tales of the wolf world, would continue to inspire generations, a timeless testament to a love that defied all odds.